Hello and welcome to Focus on Liberia. Ansony Sieh hosting, of course, another edition of the Hour of Politics with me here, your host, as always, here at Focus on Liberia. And we are broadcasting from our headquarters in Atlanta. Today, I'm excited because I have, for the first time as guest, a big brother, somebody who is like a mentor, or as my guest, but hey, this is my job and I'm going to poach him. I want to get meat out of him. I don't want bones. I don't want crumbs. We are here to talk about politics. Today, this is a political one-on-one with Mansfield G. Moses Duopu II. That name is a political name and many people know it. And he's here in the hot seat. Why are we here to talk about? Issue number one, President Weah's first term. He has been paying attention and he's going to do an analysis. And I have questions there also. Issue number two, the CPP and its prospects for 2023. And we will talk about the future of Liberia. Folks, welcome to Focus on Liberia. And at this time, I will welcome my guest, Mr. Duopu. He is popularly known as the Old Soldier. Welcome.
Thank you very much. I'm honored by your invitation.
All right. It's always good to have a Liberian joining us to talk about the issues that matter, especially in this time that we find ourselves in. Liberia, the politicians will tell you we are in some kind of deep trouble, even though there might be some disagreement there. But let's get to it, Mr. Duopu. We know you. You are a politician by study. You are also a governance expert. These are things that you have committed your life to, to be able to provide your understanding as to the direction of our country. And that is why you are best suited for this discussion. So, anything you want to share with fellow Liberians listening at this time before we get into our questioning?
Well, I'm happy for the invitation. I want to thank you and the management of Focus on Liberia. You guys have been doing an exemplary job reaching out to Liberians of all political, socio-economic stripes, engaging them, in a most serious and thoughtful way. By doing that, you guys are creating a very important political atmosphere in our country. You guys are the watchdogs of society. You guys are the members of the fourth estate, a very important component of any democratic society. As journalists, investigative journalists, I should add, you guys are very important in the body politic of any nation state. So I want to thank you and other members of your management team for such a laudable execution of your duty to the state. When it comes to the history of Liberia, our history is saturated with a lot of pitfalls. Since the founding of the nation state, Liberia have not really met up to its highest ideals.
Okay.
The very foundation of the nation state was characterized by fraud. It was characterized by, individual aggrandizement for power and wealth. And that has saturated in our body politics for over 170 years plus. And the sooner we, as a people, can identify those pitfalls, those historical pitfalls, we are doomed to repeat those very mistakes our forebears made more than 100 years ago. So I hope this discussion will, generate some thoughtful, ideas. It will generate some very important way forward, as we move our country in the next century, because the world is not waiting for us. There are a lot of developments taking place. The world is fast, ever changing. Technology, globalization, entrepreneurship beyond national borders, and a whole host of things are happening. And we can sit idly by and just, you know, be comfortable with our position in the world. There are a lot of things that we need to work on as a people, and I hope this discussion will kind of delve into some of those things.
And thank you so very much. That is what we brought you, and we will go into it. So, our first issue here, folks. If you have not shared here, please do of that usual favor. Share the show with your contact in any chat room you are a member. That is the only help we are asking of you. Mr. Duopu is here to give us his perspective, his understanding, and his professional, take on all of the issues that have engulfed our country. We want a better country. We too are human beings, and we deserve better. And when we talk about, making our country better, I mean, he couldn't have historicized it in a more succinct way for us, to set the basis for this discussion. So, President, we have first turn. You are no strangers to Liberian politics. You are a politician. When a new government is elected, as you are aware, you will always tell me the people you appoint are the people that really make the face of your government. So let's start with the formation of the Weah first term of government. What do you make of the individuals that other world leaders can look at and say, okay, they have a government in place? Talk to us. What do you see?
Well, that's a very important question, and I believe that the Liberian people elected President Weah because they felt he could deliver them from. He could bring about a political system where every Liberian will feel a part of.
Mhm.
President Weah was elected by the people, and I don't think I have any qualms with that. But election is one thing, and governance is another thing.
Mhm.
We look at our governance architecture in our country. It has always been, we've always had a powerful presidency.
Mhm.
That's the history of our country. That's the political history of our country.
Right.
We've always had a powerful presidency.
And not
And
interrupting you, Dennis Jah always call it the King Kong presidency.
yeah, I mean, you can term it any way. It can be imperial presidency. It has been written in books. Scholars of political science and government have written about the imperial presidency. It's not only Liberia, but many other countries have this imperial presidency where everything revolves around the president.
Mhm.
And but that political system, it has its own pitfalls. Because the presidency is so imperial, it's so overbearing, and people use that or connection with the presidency to attain their own, self-aggrandizement, be it, political influence peddling, be it acquiring wealth, and, just using that connection for their personal self-serving gains.
Mhm.
But what I want to drive at is that we need to sometimes look at our political system, look at our political history, and see some of the issues that are affecting our country, from the top to bottom. Because the people in our form of democracy, that is a direct synergy from the social contract theory, is a symbiotic relationship between the people and the state.
Mhm.
And in my belief, as a student of political science and government, over the years I've been reading, politics, as a keen observer of political systems, in a comparative analysis, I have come to an understanding that the people have always given their best in that symbiotic relationship, in that social contract theory.
Okay.
But the leaders have become, either complacent with their mandates. It's not about George Weah as a person, but our political system. I'm a
Mhm.
student of political science. I look at system-wide, approach to this analysis rather than
Mhm.
looking at individual case study. Although we can look at individuals, but let's look at it in a system-wide, analytical approach.
Mhm.
That has been some of our pitfalls. I think we need to have a legislative body that is strong, that can stand up to the presidency in articulating the aspiration of the people. Because in the social contract theory, the legislature, especially the House of Representatives, that what makes the House of Representatives very powerful because it represents the interest of the people, while the Senate represents the interest of the state. In that relationship, there has to be an ombudsman, somebody who can navigate the conflicts that will be arising from those relationships, which is the judiciary that will speak to constitutionality, the rule of law, and make sure that the excesses that political power brings along are restrained. So going back to your question about Mr. Weah presidency and the appointment of people around him, I think it is his prerogative. I can't fault him for that. It is why he was elected. The people believe that he can create a team, not just team of people who agree with him, but also like in
And if I
the
may
days
ask, why you can't
let me
fault
just
him?
finish. In the days of Abraham Lincoln,
Mhm.
and what made Lincoln one of the best American presidents, who is always being referenced, when it comes to American politics, because he created what was called a team of rivals, bringing people who don't even agree with you. But because of that disagreement itself, it makes you a better leader. It's not just people who will be yes men or yes women, but people who views sometimes run contrary to your views. Those are leadership traits. Those are things that a leader should always aspire to. And I believe that there were some missteps, in the early stages of the Weah administration. There were a lot of missteps in articulating their own views about how they intend to take the country, where they intend to take the country in the first place.
Mr. Duopu will come to their agenda, their plans, how they want to move the country forward. I just want to see the structure of the executive branch. You're talking about earlier, you said you can't fault him for the individuals he appointed. But you also went on to say that, hey, Lincoln is being credited as being one of U.S. best presidents because he put a team of like rivals together, people that could disagree with him.
Yes.
And using your political expertise, you are saying it's good for our democracy. It's good for decision making, either way you look at it, because you have competition of ideas and the best ideas will come forth, right? Yeah. So is that why you see in the Weah government or not?
Well, I think there are competing interests in any political arrangement. Even if there's a synergy of ideas. And I would think that there should always be a competition of ideas, and the best ideas should stand, because even in our political structure, there are competing demands, there are competing ideas, there are competing aspirations, and how do you channel those aspirations, those demands, those concerns? That is the responsibility of the political leadership. And when we talk about political leadership, it's not just the people in power, but also people who are not in power. How do they manage their own affairs? Civil society, opposition political activists, the trade union, the labor union. These are important components in a political system. Why it's true that they're always a first among equals in terms of the leadership structure, the presidency, the president. They are what leadership theoreticians and practitioners are now calling satellite leaders in their own world, their own fiefdoms. Those leaders should always project their own power. But if you leave political power in the hands of a few, that democracy is doomed, because the whole notion of what Lincoln talked about, as far as the notion of team of rivals, you will not have that. You have people always towing the line. You have people always just, regurgitating what the boss says. But if you have a political system where people can be truthful to themselves, and it's not just the president, it's the members of the legislature, it's the judges we have, our judiciary. How are they settling disputes? How are they settling conflicts in society? Because if we don't have good judges, conflict will always persist. The people will not have a judgment that is based in the rule of law. So they will always react to things. They will always find way to circumvent the laws, because the laws are not being adhered to by the political establishment. So it comes back to the whole social contract theory I talked about earlier in our democratic form of government. So that should be the value system our people should always cherish, and to always increase our political socialization. Because if we have enlightenment, you have a society that is based on the rule of law. You have a society that's enlightened when it comes to the function of government. You are better prepared. Society is better prepared to absorb those shocks. And any political establishment can establish. So
unfortunately, Mr.
Duopu,
Duopu,
need to increase their political socialization. It shouldn't be based on tribal affiliation.
Yeah.
It should be based on sectionalism.
Mm-hmm.
It should be based on the character of those who we elect.
Mm-hmm.
It should be based on what they project to us.
Mm-hmm.
Where are they taking us as a people? And we should hold it accountable. They shouldn't be seen as lords over us, but it should be seen as our servants. So that's the point I really want to drive through.
Yeah, thank you. So I want us to go to the government's plan. I mean, let's come to governance itself. I was just asking question about the formation. If you ask me, you said it right. You know, you can't fault the president according to you for the individuals he has appointed. I will fault him, and the reason I will fault him is that we want the best. And he is not giving us the best. No, the fact that he's a president, he has the right to appoint, does not mean that he should just give us anything. He is supposed to give us the best. And that is in his interest, and that is in the interest of the country. And that's the only way he can demonstrate that he means well for the country. So before we get to, the governance, how they're leading our country, the provision of basic social services, the rule of law. Before we get to those things, I want to, the officials of the CDC government, do we have many of them in the right places, or we have too many people not in the right places, and you think they are performing to expectation?
Well, I don't think it is my call to make as to who's in the right place or not. Like I said, it's the prerogative of the president. And the people have their representation in the legislature. Those people are clothed with the authority to streamline, whoever the president appoints. It's their responsibility to make sure that we have the best. Because if you have this powerful presidency, this imperial, we call it imperial presidency, where everything revolves around the president, there's no system of checks and balances. Because in our structure of government, it's a three equal branch of government. Theoretically, they should be equal. But in terms of real politics, they are not equal because the presidency, carries more sway. Mm-hmm. So I believe that the legislature, the people's representation, are clothed with authority to streamline those who are sent to the Senate mm-hmm. for appointment in the government. Mm-hmm. Because that is a responsibility to check on the presidency to make sure that we have the best minds in our government. The president has a prerogative, but they too have a responsibility. So prerogative equals responsibility. That is where we should find that balancing act. Are they doing their jobs? Are they streamlining these people? Are people just passing through? Are they just having their cozy relationship? Are they even having serious, debate in the legislature about the governance architecture? Are they summoning people to make sure that their function? Are they having serious oversight hearings on the different, structure of the government, the different departments of the government, ministries, agencies? The legislature is a very important part of our democracy.
Mr. Duopu, I get the point you're making. May I interrupt you? I get the point you're making about the role and how important that role of the legislature, in the case of confirmation, the Senate should play that key role. I get it. So it's like you have a company and you have your board of directors. The CEO and the other executives should be able to decide who occupies the position. It is their responsibility to make sure that they are doing their job and they are producing results. So that is the executive who should be able to make sure that the people he appoints, that they are delivering. And when they are not delivering, he need to do what is needed to be done for them to produce the results. You can't wait on the legislature. I get it. They have to streamline them. But if you wait for the legislature, you will not get a functioning executive branch of government. Don't you think so?
Oh, yeah, definitely. There has to be some consequences when people are not functioning in their mm-hmm. jobs.
Right.
Even in the corporate world, mm-hmm. there are consequences when an individual is not performing his or her job. Mm-hmm. So, but in the political system, in the political world, it's kind of different, you know, because some of the people who might have been appointed, you know, there are some vested interests, you know. It is true, just what you said, we want the best minds, you know, to be in our leadership, the leadership of our country. Because if you have people who are competent, who are very professional in the execution of their jobs, it makes it easier for the society to function. But you have people who are just there for their own, you know, personal benefits. It makes it difficult because they are not they are beholden to certain interests. You know, so I hope that we can look at our structure of our government and see how we can start to rebrand our government, how to bring the best minds on board. You know, it's not based on maybe political affiliation. I don't think it's based on political affiliation. You know, because even people from different political parties, there are some bright people also that you have to tap into that. You know, that was Lincoln's strength. You know, he was a Republican, and most of the people who were around him were people from the opposition party. They were Democrats and other people. And because of that relationship that he held with those people, it made him a better leader. It made him a better president. Because Lincoln believed that there were people with higher intellect, people who have sophisticated opinions or views on a lot of things.
Thank you.
Those people, there was the need for him to tap in those people's mind to make America a decent, wholesome, functioning democracy. So I think we can learn from that. You know, history is replete with those narration. Those leadership attributes.
Thank you, Mr. Duopu. I mean, I'll be honest with you. I feel that you are dodging my questions.
No, I'm not dodging the question per se. It's just that I don't want to.
Hold on, Mr. Duopu. I like what you're giving me.
I'm coming to you as a student of political science.
And I understand that. And I don't want you to give me the theory. I don't want you to give me the lecture.
It's not based on.
I'm asking you questions
in a partisanship,
based on political practicality.
Sometimes people answer this question in the realm of partisanship. But I'm just discussing with you as a student of politics and government, you know, and how I see it based on theory and over time, and how I do my analysis. So that's my approach in this discussion.
I appreciate that because I see Martin Wiaman Brown say your guest is deviating from those questions you are posting. But let me progress. The first segment I wanted to get the formation of a government. When you put a government together, people look at the quality of people you bring to your government. They say, wow, this is a serious government. And that is what I was looking for. But what you did, you gave me the whole frame of what it should be. But you don't want to nail it down. Looking at the characters of the individuals that we have in the government, you could not come to say, looking at this, I don't think is where it's supposed to be. But you said that's the president prerogative and you're not going to fault him. So let me progress. Another thing that makes a government to be a responsible government is its democratic credentials, something you have authority in, right? So let's talk about the democratic credentials, the fight against corruption, the rule of law, and, you know, respecting the press. If you look at this government, the weird presidency, what do you see in terms of its democratic credentials?
Well, one of the things that gives me confidence is that we don't have any political prisoner in Liberia right now.
Okay.
You know, and, you know, I was a student political activist, you know, at the University of Liberia.
Right.
And I've always been involved in political activism, even during the administration of former President Taylor. I was involved with the Ellen Johnson Sirleaf campaign, 1997, like many other Liberians. You know, I don't want to go back to that. It just gives the foundational, you know, framework for where I'm going. You know, when you talk about democratic credentials, you know, I mean, it's a lofty idea where we are as a democratic society, Liberia. We see that even in our democracy, there's no democracy that is perfect. You know, even in advanced democracies, you know, there's no democracy that is perfect. We, as a country, have never really had a democratic tradition. Our country has always been ruled by a one-party state for a long period of time until the 1980 coup. Even after 1980, our democracy has always been fledgling. It's never held its own. Other people in the opposition trying to curry favor with those in power, and by doing that, it waters.
Mr. Duopu, again, you are giving me a picture. I want you to give me. We're talking about this current administration, so tell me what you see. Don't tell me what's supposed to be and what has been. Tell me what you see now with the current administration in terms of democratic credentials.
You have to give me a chance to lay a theoretical foundation, all my answers. I think that's how I approach things. I don't just give answer based on yes or no, It's based on
what I've noticed is after you finish giving me the theoretical analysis, then you don't give me the meat.
Definitely. But give me a chance. Let me break it down.
All right.
Apparently, you want me to fault this government. This government is not perfect.
No, it's not about faulting. It's about you telling me practicality. I mean, I'm a practical politician, so I don't like too much theory. We read a theory, then we practice it. So this is the time to practice it.
Definitely. This government has had its own pitfalls, like any government, in the past, or any government that will come in the future. This government has had its own pitfalls. There has been time where this government was criticized, for not really living up to its promises to the Liberian people.
It was not, but it is now, right?
You talk about corruption. There have been instances where people have been accused of corruption and they have not been prosecuted to the full letter of the law. The very Anti-Corruption Commission was beset with its own internal, situation. The chairman of the commission was in a quagmire, a political and legal quagmire that even rendered that commission almost irrelevant. That is a serious governance issue, because the LACC is part of that governance structure. It's part of that integrity structure that our country seeks to project, not only to the world, but to its people, that we have integrity institutions that are apolitical, that are non-political, that are only intended to make sure they hold public officials accountable. And that has been a pitfall that I will clearly, state. People need to be prosecuted when there are glaring signs, when there are glaring evidence of corrupt practices. But sometimes they are let go scot-free. It affects our democracy. Because what we need is...
Maybe you should mute your phone, Mr. Duopu, to avoid the distraction.
Hold on a minute, yeah. We need a system where, irrespective of your political alignment, irrespective of where you stand politically,
right,
people should be held accountable. And I think this government should be doing that more robustly, more intentionally. I would call on the president to do that, to be intentional in making sure that the rules are adhered to making sure that people who are charged with public corruption are held accountable and not taken side, not because they have some connection or allegiance to any political structure. I think there has to be some accountability. And civil society organizations, I was a member of civil society before. I was a consultant at a child rights advocacy organization, Voice of the Future. Civil society, opposition political leaders, trade unionists, everybody who form part of that body politics should hold government accountable. And by doing that, but you can only do that if you are yourself being held accountable. So you can have this just government accountability and not holding institutions that make up the society accountable. So there have to be structures in those institutions internally themselves to make sure that they have accountability within. So coming back to the meat of your question, I think there are pitfalls in this government in terms of public accountability that has to be addressed, because you have to give the people trust because the people have entrusted you with this power.
And you think those paid faults have been significant or not significant at all?
Well, some of them have been very significant, you know. I mean, especially when it comes to trust, when it comes to how people view the government. You know, let's go back to the whole question of, you know, the missing 25 million, all that. How those the monies, you know, there was no clear accounting, you know, in terms of how you explain how that happened.
Right.
You know, why sure it might not have happened, but no clear where the Liberian poor were given a proper understanding of.
So we didn't come to a logical conclusion on that.
There was no logical conclusion. There's still things lingering in the minds of people if this really happened or not. Why sure there were some investigations, some forensic audits were done by external actors, but as a government, although they might not have been sophisticated at that time, you know, they were just coming in. They didn't know, you know, some of the trappings of, you know, being in government. You know, being government comes with a lot of trappings, you know, and there were not clear articulation of how that money was either used or it wasn't used at all. It was just a misinformation.
Mr. Duopu, may I follow up here quickly?
Go ahead.
Yeah, may I follow up here quickly? You think when it comes to this fight against corruption, which is an HO problem, you understand it better than I do. This is why you study. Did our president set the right tone? Did he set the example for his officials and all other people within the government to follow, in your opinion?
Well, I've made public comments on several of the things the president did initially, especially the construction of his property on the RIA highway. I thought he might not have, you know, done anything wrong per se, but in my view, you know, as a keen observer, I thought that was a bad optics. The optics was bad, you know. Just coming in, just less than 6 months, and you know these structures are going up. You know, the president, he had money. You know, I don't think he was that dead broke to the extent where he couldn't afford to build, you know, that piece of property.
Are you sure of that, Mr. Duopu? Are you sure of that?
Well, the burden may rest on you to find if he was broke or not. But I think, in my estimation, you know, somebody who had acquired a certain level of wealth and prominence, I think maybe he had some money that he could have afforded that. But let's leave that aside.
Okay, let's leave that. Because I have seen some people gotten so rich and then, you know, went broke.
Yeah, well, you know, that is another discussion for another day.
All right.
But in my estimation, in my thought process, I was of the belief that the optics were bad. You know, it was wrong. I think the president also acceded to that. That was the bad optics. The timing was poor. It was wrong. And, you know, and those things keep lingering. You know, public officials, you know, are here taking loans and, you know, I mean, going to banks. It's their right to do that. And banks, that's how they make money. You know, they give out loans and they get, you know, a return on their loan. You know, it's all about part of the financial system, you know. But coming back to your question about timing is always key in politics, you know, and you have to be careful what you do at a particular time. And I think that particular thing that I just talked about, the timing was bad. The optics was poor. So it rubbed off the people very negatively. And a lot of brouhaha, you know, about those properties that were built, and you know, I think he has learned from it. So you know, let's see, you know, and we should hold people accountable, and there should have been some level of accountability in that structure. And there are people in political power that always find a way to circumvent, you know, but there are also the country has a civil society organization that can make sure they press for answers, you know, from our political leaders. So they should find a way to do that.
Thank you. Again, folks, you're watching Focus on Liberia. Ansony Sieh here at the Hour of Politics. My guest is Mansfield G. Moses Duopu. That name is a political name in Liberia. Those of you who have followed politics know. And he is a political scientist, and he is also a governance expert. He studied government, and that is why he's here, and that is why he's answering the tough question. Well, let's end on this note with this, and then we can go to the CPP and its prospects for 2023 against President Weah. There is something you educated people will call the largesse. Talking about the largesse of the presidency. Some people call it the pearls of whatever job. There's one that caught my attention that I want us to use as a yardstick or maybe a case study in this segment of the discussion. The president's birthday. I've never seen something like that before, Mr. Duopu. You are a student of political science. You follow world leaders. We saw Obama here. We seen Joe Biden. Even Trump and all, we saw him. We didn't see anything like that, where a president's birthday got nationalized to the point that it was taken to the party's headquarters, and there was a cake with the country's flag on it, and posters all in the streets of Monrovia, and pre-birthday celebrations and t-shirts being printed. Even when our president was celebrated, we didn't see anything like that. What does that say about our president thinking about the country that he's governing that is practically poor? Talk to me.
Yeah, it goes back to the imperial presidency we talked about earlier in our discussion.
Mm-hmm.
You know, I mean, we have a country where everything revolves around the president. Let's be frank about that. You know, let's not kid ourselves. It's not just this president. Mm-hmm. It goes back to our founding as a nation state.
Mm-hmm. And but this is the pro-poor president, Mr. Duopu.
Yeah, but I mean, you know, historically, I think everybody have claimed to be, you know, a pro-poor president. You know, somebody who looks, you know, out for the downtrodden.
You read about Thomas Sankara. You read about Thomas Sankara.
On the fringes. Even Sankara, you know, I mean, Sankara too, you know, was accused of opulence, you know, in his days. You know, while it's true that he's the Che Guevara of Africa, mm-hmm. He was also accused of, you know, some level of opulence. You know, but let's come back to this president. You know, mm-hmm. I mean, that's why we also have to look at our constitution, see, mm-hmm. you know, some of the pitfalls in our constitution. You know, do we have like the emolument clause in our constitution? Can a president receive gift? You know, what the value of the gift he can receive? You know, I mean, we can insert that into our laws because the constitution should be a living organism. You know, it should be breathing. It should reflect modernity. It should reflect the reality of the day. If there's something like that you just spoke about, you know, civil society people can come up with, you know, a petition.
And talking about law, may I throw this at you quickly, Mr. Duopu, sorry. The Code of Conduct of 2014 that was passed, a limit gave to, I think less than $200 that can be given to the president or any public official for that matter.
Yeah, I mean, you know, we can go back to the Code of Conduct and see mm-hmm. how that is being, you know, effected. Mm-hmm. Because there are institutions who should be the guardians of that Code of Conduct, the Governance Commission, other, you know, integrity institutions. Mm-hmm. You know, I mean, because it's not just the president, you know, it's people who are in different structure of the government who should be held accountable for not doing their jobs. Mm-hmm. You know, if there's a Code of Conduct, there are institutions that are, you know, mandated to protect that Code of Conduct, to make sure the code is adhered to by every public official. Mm-hmm. If that is not done, you know, they have public interest lawyers in the country. I think Liberia got more lawyers than clients. You know, mm-hmm. They got people who graduate from law school every day. You know, I mean, I'm being very, you know, mm-hmm. facetious here, but, you know, I'm being very, you know, to the point. Mm-hmm. You know, that there are more lawyers. I was in Liberia just under a year ago. Mm-hmm. I used to go to the Temple of Justice. Right. I see most of my friends, you know, who, you know, were at the university with me. They're all lawyers, you know. And people need to take on public interest law. You can sue the government for issues that you think that, you know, are contrary to, you know, the values that the government, you know, I mean, projects. And when the courts are functioning, you know, public interest law is very critical in our democracy. They can take a government official to and have that government official give an accounting of their stewardship. You can do that. It all has to do with our whole system of government. It's a three-branch system of government. And when those three branches are fully functioning, you have this imperial presidency. You have, there's a whole discussion about president cake and people, printing T-shirts. Yeah, those are, partisans. His partisans are people who admire him.
Okay.
But what are the limits to that?
Okay.
There has to be a limit to everything, or else, we have a system where, it's unmanageable. It's just beyond the pale.
All right. Let me do justice to you. Our viewers are commenting. They are responding to you. Let me read some of their comments, and I get you, to close on this segment. Then we'll move to the other segment. Let's hear from Joanna Johnson Winker. Duopu, please start. This misplaced responsibility. Then we have Jerome Dibby. I hope I got that right. If we keep referring to the past and all of the pitfalls, using them as excuses to act in similar manner, how do we move forward? Let's see. Let's hear from Prince Jimmy, Mr. Sieh. That is a very important question. Then he said here again, Mr. Sieh, please let Mr. Duopu be protected. Please, okay? The man say I should protect you. I'm protecting the man, but I'm doing my job. I have to put him, because if I don't put you, I will not get a meat. I hear from me. I don't want crumbs. So yeah, from Joanna here again, we can see how Duopu is struggling. Well, someone is making an observation here.
That's good. That's good.
Yeah, let's hear from Martin Wiaman Brown. Your guest is wasting our time here. He got interest somewhere. Oh, someone say you have interest somewhere. It's a political being, right? G backup Mansfield said politics interest. Josh Toto, there is no political prisoner, but there is a political tribulation that is sweeping across the length and breadth of the country. Someone will agree with that. Let's hear from your comrade Joe Jackson. Joseph Thomas Jackson has said, no, he will not answer your question. He has an interest in your government, accusing fingers pointing at you here. Brian, again, he's basically here said, is he afraid to hit on the president? He met President We are because he's just dangling. That person writes. Let's hear from George Toto again. The legislature streamlines the appointees, but we can see that they are not performing. Why the executive cannot take action? Let's hear from I believe this is Dr. Samuel Dabe. Zambe. We had him before. Sorry there if I'm not pronouncing your name well. In my opinion, there is an imbalance of the social contract in Liberia. Politicians over the years have abused and victimized, subjecting them to unemployment and abject poverty. These factors manipulate the minds of the people and their abilities to think logically in electing good leaders. That is a solid point there. This person, Joanna, again, so contradicting Mr. Duopu. You are confusing the argument. So few comments there. Let me give you the opportunity to respond. Then we'll move to the CPP and APOS for 2023.
The comments are not, in itself bad. It's just that, there's something called an idiosyncratic predisposition, and sometimes people see things differently, which is also good. It's good to have a diversity of opinions. Those people are making very key points, but I beg to differ. Because I have not been contradictory. I've not taken side. Like somebody said, I have an interest in the government. No, I don't. If I had an interest in the government, it's not a bad thing in itself, because it's the government that was elected by Liberian people. I'm a Liberian, so
yeah, and that is your government. That is a government that you produce, right?
Well, that's another argument for another day.
Okay.
Produce in terms of what? I support the government. Let me make it clear.
You elected the government.
I support the government. We all
your party produced the government.
Those who, but I'm not coming to this discussion from a partisan, standpoint. I don't have any partisan, beef in me that I want to excoriate maybe opposition people, or I want to just heap praises on the government. I've said things that I've said things that the government did wrong here on this platform, or many times in many other interviews, and I was excoriated by people who are friends of mine, and people who think or who thought that I shouldn't have said those things. Well, yeah. I've lost some friends over the years. I don't care. I speak my mind without any, pressure, because I know that I believe what I say and I say what I believe. Sometimes it rubs off people differently.
To that too. I've seen some of your posts.
Those people, they are making some very important points. I might be blinded by some of the things I'm saying. It helps you to be a better person, to be a better scholar. It's not something that is to deride me or in a way, shape, or form. And I thank them for those comments.
All right.
So just closer on this issue, about the We Are Fresh Turn. These guys were in opposition for 12 years plus, and coming to opposition, being opposition is completely different from being in charge of the governance architecture. It's a seismic paradigm shift. Until you change your whole mentality towards that shift, there will be pitfalls. There will be pitfalls. It's a seismic paradigm shift. They were not really prepared from the early stages, handling the affairs of state. Let me be clear on that. I've been clear on that from many other interviews I've done, my writings, I've done. I've been clear on that. They were not prepared from the early stages. It's a learning curve. The society is itself, is learning. Our political socialization that I spoke about. It's not about just the people in power. It's about people who are not in power. What are their attitudes towards the governance architecture? Are they holding the government itself accountable? We see there are also fractures in those opposition political movements. Are they themselves together? Are they prepared that even if this government is not elected, are they prepared to usher in a new transformational Liberia? Those are things that we need to discuss as a people.
Certainly.
The CDC government, CDC was in opposition, was a leading opposition party against Ellen for 12 years. They did all manner of things. They brought, accountability. It was a CDC that itself started the whole issue of, war crimes court. Yeah, I remember, those things are, the political jockeying for power over time have sometimes created new monsters, new political, animals.
Thank you.
And as student of political science, those are things that we look at. Those the features in the analysis we do. It's not based on any individual person. It's not based on partisanship or what. We do our analysis based on comparative, study. Comparative study. That's what we do.
So just a short answer here from you, if you may, so that we can move to the CPP and it prospects. We go into pretty much an hour now. Looking at what the CDC has promised. From the time it became a political party preaching, change, and where they are right now, and do you think the CDC is on track to delivering the change for the Liberian people? I need a very short answer.
Well, I think they are on track. They may not have everything in place. It's a learning process, and change itself is very hard. Change is not just a political party coming to power and overnight, having this revolution. Change itself starts with an individual. Okay. Our mindset, how we view government, how the rule of law and all that. It's a process where individual responsibility and your rights. Do you know your rights? Do you know responsibility? All those things are factors that bring about change.
Thank you.
It has to do our political consciousness and political socialization as a people.
Thank you. He said the government is on track to delivering the change for the Liberian people. But when I see the process, something jumps out of me and say, hey, I don't know this change. Let's take a little short break. When we come back, we'll be looking at the CPP and its prospects comes 2023. We see the CPP is imploding, even though it has narrowed to 2 candidates, but there's so much noise. We will come to that. He is a politician. He will give us his best analysis.
I like to be labeled as a political scientist rather than a politician.
Yes, he's a political scientist. All right, let's take that short break. Don't go anywhere, folks. We'll be right back. All right, we are back with you here, folks. If you are just joining us, this is Focus on Liberia, our program, The Hour of Politics, and you know I'm your host here. I have with me a political scientist, Mansfield G. Moses Duopu II, a political name in Liberia body politics. Mr. Duopu, let's come to the CPP and its prospects. You know that opposition is always a government in waiting, and this particular one, CPP, is telling us it is the alternative to what we have right now. Quickly, what jumps out of you, knowing what we know now happening in this very CPP, the collaboration?
Well, one of my favorite political theoreticians I've always quoted, Harold Laswell. He defines politics as the authoritative allocation of values. The authoritative allocation of values. That's very loaded, you know. What is value in the first place? Value is anything you cherish. Anything one cherishes is a value. If you cherish money, money becomes your value. If you cherish your children become your values, you know. And in a political system, you know, there are always competing interests, you know. Even in a governance architecture, there are different power structure, power dynamics that are playing. And one has to understand those dynamics, how those dynamics are playing out. Are they to the benefit of the people they are articulating that they are serving, or are they to their personal benefits? That marriage, that CPP marriage, you know, it should be based on value. Like Laswell said, the authoritative allocation of value. What does the United Party value? What does the ALP value? What does the ANC value? What does the LP value? And sometimes there are conflict in understanding those, you know, questions. Your value could be clearly different from my value, but we're coming together in a marriage, like, you know, husband and wife. They have different reasons why they come together. By the end of the day, their being together kind of is supplanted by their collective good rather than individual good. Whereas in a political system, like we see in the CPP, I don't think they are shared values. You know,
Why you say that?
The underlying current of the CPP is to replace we are, which of course that is aspiration of any opposition political party, to replace the party in power. That is clear. That is something that you work day and night to achieve.
Okay.
But as a collectivity coming together, I don't think they have any other shared value other than that.
Why may you say that? Is it because they don't have a plan?
You know, I mean, I don't see, you know, how to even move forward. We've heard about the framework agreement. We've heard about, you know, all the accusations and counter accusations about, you know, somebody altering document, fingering document. You can use whatever description. That doesn't bode well for institutions that are coming together. We've heard, you know, very salacious things they said about each other. The acrimony is so there. They hate for each other. There's no value, there's no shared value between a Benina Ure and an Alexander Cummings. You see that there's like day and night. You know, they don't share anything in common.
So let me make you pull on your.
Let me just set the basis for where I'm going.
Yeah.
The one I want to share in common is the detriment of we are, which is a good thing. It's not a bad thing in itself. But after that, is that anything in terms of, you know, economic accountability that a Cummings shares with a Ure? No, because they come from two different worlds. They have two different perspectives about how to move Liberia forward.
So that begs the question, Mr. Duopu, if you don't mind, what you think should have been?
Let's come to the other actors in the whole, conundrum, the whole arrangement, the CPP arrangement. That comes to the other actors. Do you think a Yomli Kanga, actually believes that a Benin Ure should be president of our country? Or do you think an Omen Bwaka believes that Cummins should be, after he has, kind of usher himself as the eldest statesman, somebody who has been bequeathed to this position over his many years of public service and his 12 years of being vice president.
His side is just the experience.
And Cummins is just a newbie, a Johnny just come along guy who wants to use his wealth to attain political power. So those are some of the things that they need to deal with internally. We've heard all these squabbles. We've heard them. We've heard these bad things they say about each other.
So, Mr. Duopu, the squabbles aside, you talk about share value and using your political science cap here. That is why you were looking for, surmising here. So if I'm correct, what should have been a share value that you will see to say these guys are doing this for the country that you don't see now?
Well, that's a very important question. First of all, is the involvement of the people in that whole arrangement.
Okay.
You see people are already taking sides behind their so-called political leaders. The very delegates to the would-be convention. They already have taken side. They are bequeathed to individual candidates.
But that is common in politics, though, Mr. Duopu.
Yeah, I mean, if that was a serious collaboration where the people would decide, there should be freedom of association. A United Party partisan who is a delegate to that conference should be able to vote for whomever that person thinks is the best candidate to lead the CPP. But what I'm saying is that people have already taken sides, people have already pre-committed themselves to their political leaders. So what do you have?
Mr. Duopu, you think it would have been better if they have decided a primary process where the candidates canvass from county to county, and then the citizens who support them can
talk about what they call voter perception survey and all the, zero-sum kind of approach to politics. Politics, it shouldn't be zero-sum approach. It should be what is called a variable-sum approach, a win-win mentality. But people have already, in the CPP, have a zero-sum mentality to work. Is your win is another person's loss, or somebody's loss is your win. If you go to politics in that kind of with that kind of mentality, people see through the veneer. People see,
especially when you are in a political union
of this political machination. They see through this thing. It's a thin veil. The Liberian people see through this veil because they know that Mr. Cummins, I don't fault him for his wealth. I don't fault him for his achievement in corporate America. There are some people who believe that this man, he's using his wealth to aspire to political power. He should have gone through, the ranks, gone through other legislative, elective offices, groom himself, ingratiate himself.
Is that a requirement for seeking office?
That does not preclude anybody from seeking office. Well, in our body policy, the kind of political socialization our people have, those are some of the prerequisites. You have to go through the baptism of fire, and people in the United Party.
So this prerequisite here, is it something that is like part of the Liberian political culture? Because Trump did not go through that prerequisite and he won here, right?
Who?
I said Trump did not have to go through that, but he won anyway.
There's a different political socialization process in America or other Western democracy. In our democracy, it's fledgling. Most people who vote sometimes don't even know who they are voting for, what programs they have, and what they intend to do. There's no real, intentional way to vet our candidates.
So do you see that as a disqualifying element for Cummins?
Well, I mean, it's not me to say, but from what I've been reading, from what I've been hearing, from people of all political stripes, especially in the CPP, you see that coming is like, this. I feel so sorry for the guy. I think he has a good heart. I think he has some good plans, but people think that he's just a Johnny Just Come, like they say in our own, Liberian,
So this Johnny Just Come team. How long does one has to be in politics to not be a Johnny Just Come?
Yeah, it's our political socialization process that we've had. Like take for a Benina Ure, who have had a very checkered past. Who their accusations both in Liberia and outside Liberia as to some of the things that he's done, and I'm going to pass judgment on that. People, it's common knowledge. It's all over the place. You can read it, you can Google it, you see it all over the place. But he and Comey don't see eye to eye. There's a good guy and there's a bad guy, and they don't see eye to eye. I think people are more skilled in the CPP towards you.
Are you saying that for a fact, or you just are using that as an analogy that Ure is a bad guy?
I mean, it's all over the place. That Ure is a bad guy. Ure has been part of, our problem over the years. Ure has amassed ill-gotten wealth. Yeah, he has established himself as a political presence in Liberia under normal circumstances, in a normal arrangement. That guy should be disbarred from politics for life. But we'll come to that. There are people.
Yeah, that has to be another discussion because that is heavy. That is heavy. That you should be barred from politics.
To the CPP arrangement, I mean, what were they thinking? Are they saying that the document that was signed, the signature were affixed? Lawyers took those documents to peruse them to see some of the legal loopholes and all that stuff submitted to the National Elections Commission. Those very documents that brought about the election of some of their senators like Dillon and others, that document was fake. So come on now, what do you think Liberian people will say, for your credentials to take power, I mean, it's not a bad thing to aspire for political power. And I don't fault them for that. But if that is the only thing that brings them together, that is the only mantra that holds the CPP, there's a lot to be desired by Liberian people, especially for an opposition bloc that wants to, to attain political power by dethroning a government that was in opposition for 12 years. So look at that kind of arrangement. It's something that's untenable. In the CPP, I would like for them to work on their internal squabbles because I want to see a very strong democratic society in Liberia. I want to make sure that, opposition political parties are strengthened, have the best leaders, people who will assume power from on day one. That's my hope. That's the hope for other Liberians.
Earlier you were laying the basis for what could possibly avoid this political squabble that you are talking about. Convention versus a primary. If you don't mind, I want you to comment on this. I am of the view that maybe if they have decided what should be a primary, where all the candidates go from county to county, the canvas, and the people in the counties who support the opposition side, even sometimes people who support the government could decide who they want to see from the opposition side too, right? Yeah, do you think, put on your political scientists hat here, could that have in any way minimized the squabbles that we are seeing?
I think the squabble is actually being perpetrated by the political leadership of the CPP. The different, because it might not be the rank and file members of those political parties, although they are hardened, partisans, and they find accommodation in their political leaders per se. But the convention system would have worked for them.
The primary
system would have worked for them. It would have streamlined. If there are two leading candidates, they will go to a primary, and the conventionals at the primaries should be given free will. That a Cummins can go to a unity party partisan and try to win him over or win her over, and say Joseph Parker can do that too. But I think they are all set in their lanes. There's this fractual, ideological extremism that's going on in the CPP.
Right.
The extremism is so visible. It's so palpable. The Liberian Post were like, what is this? The kind of arrangement people have not even settled it from the onset, and they are trying to, go to 2023 with this kind of confusion and acrimony.
I know.
There's a lot to be desired. So
I know. I couldn't agree with you more because
work on their squabbles to really have shared values. We come back to shared values. But if the detriment of George Weah is their only shared value, there's a lot to be desired, because even prior to, you saw the last elections, 2017, and how the whole political interplay went on, and how George Weah ultimately got the presidency. There were serious political acrimony, and that matter.
I agree with you there, Mr. Duopu. Right, I agree with you there, because if you look at the convention process that they have chosen to be the process to use in deciding their candidate, you see that the political leaders and their lieutenants in the individual parties will control the thing. And that is why bringing the tension, because what we saw, Benina Ure, his 200 or 3,000 delegates, they say, well, it's Mbwaka Kono. That is a problem.
It's a recipe for chaos.
It's and that's why we are having
predetermine the outcome they want to use. Then you make personal comment, comment will become intransigent. Right. You can't fault him for being intransigent, because you think that it's a foregone conclusion. It was already predestined. Let's leave it to the conventionals, the delegates to freely decide. When you have because we've had this collaboration as far back as 1985. Against Samuel Doe. I was a young boy at the time. Growing up. My father was involved in that process. With the Liberian Action Party. All that. I heard things. I saw things. We all, read about things. We saw that in 1997 against Taylor. These arrangements that are not based in shared values,
right?
Are always, they're always headed for failure, right. And I don't even believe in my right mind that the CPP will be a CPP going to 2023. I think, it will have some kind of hybrid CPP. I don't think it is constituted right now. I don't think it will go into 2023 the way it is. I think it will be some kind of hybrid, some kind of, other factional arrangement that will happen.
So let me have you discuss two possibilities here for the CPP prospect against the ruling Coalition for Democratic Change comes 2023. Should the CPP hold, whichever way it goes, where after all these squabbles, they say, well, we have to go against we are as a unit. Let's say they go with Cummings, or let's say they go with Vice President Joseph Mbwaka. Manion's Cummings on the ticket or not? Do you see a possible victory? That's piece number one. Piece number two, if it falls apart, which seems to be a possibility also, where Cummings goes solo and Mbwaka goes solo, which one of the two, looking at what you know and using your political scientist hat here, who you think will succeed to the second round to go against Weah? And how will that person perform against President Weah in 2023?
Well, I would just start by answering your question by saying that Weah is a very formidable force in the body politic of Liberia right now. Weah still enjoys a lot of popularity, and the first term, the beginning of the first term was very, troubling. I think they've worked on some of the issues they should have worked on initially. They are growing in a job. He's doing some very important work in terms of infrastructure, in terms of, the peace that we enjoy today. There's something intrinsic about the peace that we enjoy today. Although there are, always issues arising in Liberia, we hear about different stuff every week or every month, but we still enjoy a semblance of peace in our country that we should all be proud of, and we should be thankful that we have a society now that is channeling its aggression or aspiration, whatever you want to call it, through legal means. If it means peaceful protests, reaching out to your lawmakers, channeling those concerns through the democratic legal frameworks. That's good for our democracy, and we should build on that. But coming back to different permutations and combination of who goes against where and all that stuff. Well, I think it'll be good if the CPP went into elections very unified, because we don't have real ideological differences in our political system. If you look at Liberian political system, from a comparative analysis standpoint, there's no real ideological differences. Everybody just aspiring for that one thing, power. There's no somebody who is a leftist or a right winger. People are mostly in the center. Yeah, we are mostly centrists. We are conservative on some issues and very liberal on some issues. We find a centrist in our politics. We're not so extremists. Some people are in the different in all the political parties. They are extremists on all sides. There are people who are just extremists, who are just ideological. And you accommodate them. Just for the sake of politics, just for the sake of democracy, you accommodate people of all stripes. But I think the best possibility is the CPP going as a strong united force. By doing that and by having that scenario, it will make our democracy strong. Because most of the political parties in Liberia are just in name. People, tribal groups and family, 2-3 family members, so they're having political parties just to go into elections and take.
Mr. Duopu, my audience are waiting for the answers.
0.000%, and only to jockey for assistant minister or deputy minister or deputy managing director or some public corporation. Oh, mama, in the election, or I can give you my vote in the second round, but secure for me X, Y, and Z position. That's not the kind of democracy we want, based on personal aggrandizement. So I think, while Vice President Bouaka is very well known, based on his more than 40 years of public service, but Cummings, he has some very strong, thought process about his views about Liberia, and it's accommodating, it's refreshing, it's something that is like, who's this guy? Let's take a look at him, second look,
I've heard him several times. Can the CPP win with a Cummings ticket, meaning Cummings on top of the ticket?
Well, it's a possibility. In politics, like Backup Matthew has told us, is the art of the possible. Everything in politics is possible. There's no limit on what you can achieve in politics.
What's about Vice President Joseph Yuman Bouaka being on top of the ticket? Is there a possibility too?
It's also possible. Vice President Bouaka is a very harmless character. He's viewed by most Liberians as this elder statesman, somebody who is calm, under tension, somebody who has served his country, somebody who over 40 years has given his life to public service. And our people are very,
you think how would the narrative be in terms of campaign? Should Mr. Bouaka be on the ticket of the CPP? Should the CPP hold, as opposed to Cummings being on the ticket? Should the CPP hold the narrative, the campaign narrative?
Well, if the CPP can hire my firm, the Duopu Global Consulting, then I can, give a narrative. That's
Focus on Liberia has called you to provide analytical understanding for our people. So do that.
That'll be a relationship I will have with a client. Then But then, to come to being very frank with you on that, I think, having an older person and a young person, maybe Bwaka being the head and Cummins needs to learn. Cummins needs some training too, although he got all the fresh new ideas. People that Bwaka being in the trenches for a long time.
What training? So these people that have been in the trenches, Mr. Duopu, allow me to throw this at you. Those who have been in the trenches for long, I'm sure we have had some of them in government, Bwaka being one of those. Did they really deliver our people? For which we should still want these old experience, if I can put it that way, for lack of better word.
You can't throw the baby with the bath water, like they say, not because the baboon ugly, you beat it to death or something that I didn't say, but I think experience too is important, But
why every experience is bad, Mr. Duopu?
There's corporate, background, but he's not being tried and tested. He'll make a good president. He'll make a good vice president. It's left with their arrangement. I hope the process is free, fair, and transparent, that every Liberian will find, some comfort in that process. They respect the process. But what I'm saying, as a keen observer of what is going on in the CPP, is that it's so fractious. It's the pieces are falling every day.
Yeah.
There are some of the emissaries they have, the different political leaders, they have their own people who are gun toters, for them, cannon fodders for them. Some of the very incendiary things they say, you listen to somebody like Costa, some of the incendiary things he says about Cummins, it's so mind-boggling. It's so demeaning. And some of the things other people will say about, former Vice President Bwaka.
Yeah, it's on both sides.
So
it's on both sides.
That's what I say about extremists on all sides. And that people need to be reined in, to have a very sober,
and Mr. Duopu, do you know where that is coming from?
Mature discussion.
Yeah, do you know where that is coming from, Mr. Duopu?
It's coming from the very leaders themselves who aid and abet these extremists. They would not say those things if they're not given cover by their political bosses. They throw these jobs and they use these people as the conduits for these jobs against their opponent.
All right.
I don't think they are. I won't consider them as as friends. They are not. This is political gamesmanship. It's political gamesmanship. Is jockeying for power. Is the whole intent of somebody will come at the top of that whole arrangement. We just hope and pray that the process leading to that will be, free of any acrimony, any debasement of any candidate. And we hope that, because it's good for our democracy, that we have a strong opposition bloc.
Thank you.
Because most of the political parties, like I said earlier, they are just in name. They are just, people wanting, to get, ministerial position at the end of the day for themselves or their followers.
Thank you. Mansfield Moses Duopu is a political scientist and a government expert. He's my guest here on the Hour of Politics. I'm Ansony Sieh hosting. This is Focus on Liberia, where we educate, we elevate, and promote all things Liberia. And many of you know our style here is we always want to educate. We take it from an educational background. Though we talk on politics, but we are educating at the same time. And that is our style. Mr. Duopu, time is fast spent. Let me bring in comments, have you respond, and then you will close on. I'll give you a 5 minute to close on Liberia political future. How do you see it? You as a political scientist, how do you see it, knowing what's going on right now? So, folks, we're bringing you in with your comments. This one, and Mr. Duopu, take note so that you can respond appropriately. I appreciate that. Joanna here, Duopu, we have used that for years and you did nothing. It is time that we divert from that Liberian way and try something different, because they always are not working. Period. I don't know what you were talking about, or maybe you're talking about experience. We have Martin Brown. he quite balanced in, maybe meant to say he's quite balanced in his analysis when it comes to the CPP. He is actually bringing fairness to the discussion right now, Sieh. So he criticized you during the first segment that you're dodging the question.
That's good.
Yeah. So let's hear from Andrew Tobase. He's a classmate. We graduated together. He's in the borough there. I think he moved somewhere, but we both were in the borough. In-depth conversation needed to unearth more, according to my comrade there. Flomo, who is watching us on YouTube, right? I keep telling some of my friends that the best way is primary. Each candidate go to each county. Let the citizen vote for who should be the stand-up bearer. And I've been advocating for this. That is why I don't see the CPP as an alternative, because they're doing the same thing over and over. Because this is how previous collaborations were arranged, right? And they all fail. And at the same thing, let the people decide. Give the power to the people. Let them decide. Let's hear from Prince, who criticized you earlier in the first segment. Prince Jimmy, Mr. Duopu, there is no peace within this administration to admit. Maybe he's right there, because according to that Martin Luther King, he said the peace is not just the absence of something, but the presence of justice. So he's making a point. Maybe he does not see justice in the land. Let's hear from Andrew Tobase again. Personal aggrandizement progressively yet to give answers to the kind of democracy needed to uplift Liberia. Let's hear from Christopher Yanti. I am very impressed. You were on the issues, and you are on the issues and very articulate. That person, right? So there's some love coming here, Mama. Your analysis is balanced here with this segment. They said Jimmy Eastman writes, politicians have not provided solutions because their goal is selfish and not a proposed course of action. Okay, yeah, to resolving our issue. Mr. Duopu, he accused you political scientists that you don't provide solution. Is that true? Let's start with that one.
He's talking about politicians, not political scientists.
Okay.
He's talking about people who are actually involved in the day-to-day affairs of power and its dynamics.
Okay, yeah, I want you to answer that. You think they don't provide solutions? They just provide.
I think politicians have one thing in common, and that is their attainment of power. It could be in Liberia, America, in any country, democratic, non-democratic, totalitarian, non-totalitarian.
But you are faulting the CPP for doing the same thing, right?
Definitely, yeah. But like what the person said, it's all about the attainment of power. But then who entrusts that power to them is the people. So the people got to hold them accountable for that power that they have entrusted with them. I've always believed that the people always hold a sway in any political arrangement, even in despotic regimes, despotic totalitarian regime. The leadership is a direct reflection of the people. If you want democracy, the people got to want democracy. If a country has a dictatorship, the people might want a dictatorship.
Yeah. You are right. And Obama said it is not a spectator sport. Democracy is not.
So like what the caller, or how you say them, the caller or what said.
The viewer,
he's right. Politicians have one singular goal. Politicians in general is the attainment of power. But that power itself has its own elastic limit. It is the people who allows that elastic to stretch, you know what I mean? Beyond that limit, or they can restrain that power. We've seen revolutions around the world. We've seen popular uprising, people's power. The people, they either acquiesce to dictatorship or bad governance, or they reject it in its track. They can do that. But it comes with political consciousness, political socialization. Politicians will always play on the vulnerability of the people.
All right.
When they know the people are vulnerable, the people are not sophisticated, the people don't have jobs, the people don't have the wherewithal, food, and other basic amenities for themselves or their children. Their future is bleak. People play on those vulnerabilities. But in a society where people are working, people are educated, people are sophisticated, people are technologically engaged, people have a worldview, they think locally but act globally. Those people they have a better chance in their democracy to hold political leaders accountable because they don't depend on you for their survival. They don't depend on you for their children's school fee or, to make them, who they ought to be. They aspire for their individual, goals, their aspiration based on what the society provides. So I think our society should aspire for that. To make it a functioning democratic society, our people must aspire to the highest ideals.
Thank you.
And no government can provide that. No government can provide that because the number one aspiration of any politician is the attainment of power.
All right. I could do a push back there, but time has caught up with us, so I will leave it there. I think we'll have to come back. Again, before I gave you the opportunity to close with Liberia's, political future, Christopher Yanti, right? My man answers are well pointed now than when he was responding to the CDC and their espoused mantra of change. Then let me see another great comment here from John Mason. He said, so intelligent. So, in this segment, a lot of people are agreeing with you. Then John here writes again, Mansfield is one of the most brilliant minds in Liberia today. He is a replica of his late father. Amazing, that person concludes. Let's hear from Hamilton Zilli. Can we say the president is a direct reflection of the society in which he rules? If that is correct, why then blame the president for all the missteps in our governance system? Well, time has, caught up with all. Mr. Duopu, we have to leave it there. I know, you could chime on that, but what I want you to do now is to give us your closing and tell us, what do you see looking at the political future of Liberia?
Well, that is a very important question. And I think every well-meaning Liberian should be pondering that question and finding answers. The political future of Liberia, what should I say? I think Liberia has a very bright future.
Mr. Duopu, before you continue, hold on, Mr. Duopu, before you continue, I know this is your closing, and I'm sorry to interrupt you, but I think this is important. Political scientists and politicians, for the most part, since J.J. Robert time, they will always say our days ahead of us will be better than now. But Liberia has been around for 174 years now. I have not seen it. Maybe I don't have good eyes. Go ahead.
Yeah, but 174 years might sound old, but there are other societies like, Rome and even the United States that has been around for more than 200 years.
Right.
They are still building their political infrastructure, their governance architecture. Every day they find way to perfect what they call their union. Why it's true that there's no perfect political system, but they find ways to see what they can do better. And I think if we Liberians can just come to that point to find way to make our country better every day, to hold public officials accountable, to make sure that, we can have a wholesome, functioning society. It's not only the presidency that needs to be held accountable. Like I said earlier, the whole system of governance, the judiciary, the legislature, the civil society, the people who don't even have power today, like we talk about the CCP arrangement.
Mhm.
Is there any accountability there in that arrangement, or is just based on a hogwash arrangement where one person will emerge to the detriment of others, and that person will feel bad and go in their own little corner and just stop being part of the political process? We need to encourage everybody to be part of the process, even those who we oppose politically.
Mhm.
Sometimes people think because you differ with them politically,
Mhm.
you are a bad person. I've lost a couple of friends because of that. I make no apology. You know, my friends and I don't have to share the same political ideals. No, it's not the business of our friendship. There's no friendship that is 100%, based on, everything that should be in alignment. No, even my wife and I, we differ politically at times. At the university, I was a member of the Student Unification Party. I even rose to the leadership of the University of Liberia Students Union. Also,
Yeah.
my wife was a member of the Student Democratic Alliance STUDA. And some of my colleagues, some of my party, ideologue, they fought me for that. You know, I was debased, I was derided by some of my colleagues. How can you allow your wife, be in a
A
student
student.
and you soup and you mount a Politburo and Central Committee? I'm like, you know what? When it comes to that, she's my wife. When we go home at the university campus, she's a free wheeler. She has freedom of association. Until we as a society start thinking of our political opponents as allies in other areas, our democracy will have a lot of setbacks. I've always told people, some of the best minds are people who oppose you. You have to tap into that. Our current president, we have to reach out to people, even in the opposition, who have, you know, expertise in specific areas of governance that we can use. They are citizens in the first place. They are citizens. They have rights and responsibilities. They shouldn't be looked at as partisan, belonging to this X party and that. Because at the end of the day, it's all about Liberia. It's about the future of our country. It's not about which party is in power and which party is not in power, because they all aspire for power in the first place. But the people suffer when these deep-seated antagonism, which is sometimes and most times superficial, it's not based in any kind of ideological framework. These people meet at night, they concoct plans. Our people suffer from those midnight arrangements, and they kind of project themselves as the leaders of the people, holding the mantra of leadership. People should see it through that veneer. They should reject that. And it goes back to our political consciousness as a people, political socialization. So our future as a country, as a people, as a democracy, our best years are yet to come. I think with a new generation of enlightened intellectuals, the intelligentsia, they can put away their differences. They can focus on the future of Liberia, because every generation looks forward to the next generation being better than that generation. We have not seen that in Liberia since its founding. There have never been a time a particular generation has set the basis, that the next generation has benefited from. No, even when we were, we who went through the war, prior to the war, there was nothing set in motion. Maybe that's why the war came. Our governance system was factual. People just did things because of their partisanship. We should leave this whole notion of ultra partisanship. I call it ultra partisanship. That ultra, antagonistic ideologue. People who are in that mindset should come to the center because the country belongs to all of us. George Weah will be there today. He will go tomorrow. If even Bwaka comes there or Cummins, Liberia moves on. The people have always been truthful in that social contract theory. That social contract, the people have done their part. Our leaders have been wanting in the execution of that part of that side of the bargain. Our people have bore the brunt of misrule and bad governance. Not just today. Our history is replete with bad governance. Our people have bore the brunt, whereas the political leaders have always left them. They've traveled away. They have the means. Their kids can, they can fly on an aircraft that'll be waiting for them. But our people will be there. Today, our people, we shouldn't look for Messiah. We shouldn't look for this heroic, messianic being. No, we'll never find that. But if we can invest in our governance structure, in our institutions to hold power accountable, we will be on the right track to moving our country forward. So, the future, our political future, is not bleak. It's not like other countries that don't even have government, don't even have, a place of their own. They are a wretched people. No, we are not wretched. We are a people who have gone through a lot from the foundation of our country. We've learned over time, over 170 years of misrule. The future of our country is in our youth. I think we need to do some serious investment in our young people.
All right.
We can invest in them. We can teach them to be conscious members of society, not to just be followers of people who bring money and bread, but people who bring enlightenment to them. Our future, our best years are yet to come. I want to thank you so much for the opportunity.
Mansfield G. Moses Duopu is a political scientist. Mr. Duopu, thank you so very much for honoring our invitation here. Focus on Liberia always, because this is not certainly your first time, and we know you are always willing to avail yourself to provide your understanding on the direction of our country and also on governance issue. We want to say thank you. Folks in cyberspace, we are about to conclude our broadcast, but I need to show you that this evening at 7 p.m. Eastern Time, my colleague Dennis Ja will be hosting the show Tough Talking Thursday. This is the day panelists come to talk tough about the issues that are unfolding in our country. In this edition, they will be talking about the CPP. Is it dead or is it alive? You don't want to miss it. The best panelists in the world will be here to discuss the issue. Wede Power, Wemo Kuni, Rabo Gagwa, Carl Famala, and Mohammed Sharif. You can't find it anywhere better than what we will give you here at Focus on Liberia. Again, folks, thank you for always following our broadcast here at Focus on Liberia. We encourage you to always like our Facebook page and also subscribe to our YouTube channels where our videos are, and you will get notification if you miss anyone live, so you can have the opportunity to learn, because here we educate, we elevate, and promote all things Liberia. We never close any of our broadcasts without playing the song "We Are All Liberians," in spite of all that we continue to endure since the founding of our fathers. That glorious land of liberty, by God's command, will one day come. Unfortunately, we may not be here, but we have to do what we can to make it happen for those after us. Thank you, and bye-bye.
We are Liberians. Liberia is our